One of the best things about TV in the 60s was that most shows didn't have a huge writer's room with a lot of people getting involved in creating a single episode. Not like today where shows are written by committee and the quality of the story suffers. Rod Serling was clearly the head and the main director of where the Twilight Zone was going, and he made sure the writers knew it. Rod gave certain writers, like Richard Matheson and Charles Beaumont, more room than others, but when it came down to the final script, Rod's fingerprints were all over it. One early script was titled Third from the Sun and was taken from a short story by Richard Matheson and turned into a knockout screenplay by Serling himself. It was the second Twilight Zone script by Matheson, following up on the episode And When the Sky Was Opened. It was the beginning of a long relationship for Serling and Matheson, as Rod would turn to him many times throughout the run of the Twilight Zone. Third from the Sun was the perfect story for the Zone, as it mixed all the elements that made the Zone famous. A man and his family against the world, elements of the future and science fiction, and of course, the signature twist ending that the Twilight Zone was so famous for. Serling stayed faithful to Matheson's short story, fleshing it out a bit by naming the characters, adding some dialogue, and creating an interesting villain. The story opens at a military base, with our main character, William Sturka, played with emotional depth by Fritz Weaver. Sturka is a scientist working at the military base where they've been producing hydrogen bombs in preparation for a coming nuclear war.
Sturka, hydrogen armament. You boys are pretty busy up there, aren't you?
Very.
Sturka takes a break and lights up a cigarette, and we get to meet the main villain of the story, a man named Carling, played magnificently by Edward Andrews.
Hold the light, will you, Sturka?
Andrews' character turns what could have been a cardboard cutout villain into a very real and interesting and threatening character. Carling tells Sturka with excitement in his voice that the talk is that the war will start within 48 hours.
48 hours we'll have 'em aloft. Then whoosh, up, over, and whammo. There goes the enemy.
When Sturka voices his discontent, Carling tells him he should watch what he says and what he thinks. Here, Serling comes in with a chilling narration that contrasts a normal end-of-the-day eating supper and spending time with family with the stark reality that this is the eve of the end. Now we switch to Sturka at home, playing some odd futuristic music in his living room while he contemplates the future. His daughter enters and he has a heart-to-heart with her about his job making weapons of mass destruction and how he's just a cog in the wheel. But we can plainly see how upset he is with the part that he plays in the weapon's construction. The camera sits at an odd angle, which gives the episode a strange, unearthly feel, and, like the music, makes you wonder just where this event is taking place. Is it the future? Some other dimension? It's a great foreshadowing of the ending that we know now is to come. As Mom enters the scene, Sturka's daughter Jody talks about how all her friends feel that something terrible is about to happen, that something's wrong, something's in the air. Sturka tells his wife to invite neighbor Jerry over for cards and asks his daughter to be there. She says she has a date, but Dad tells her to break it. We now get a hint about what Dad might be planning as he talks about how Jerry is a test pilot.
Invite Jerry Ryden and his wife over tonight, will you, Eve? We'll have some cards or something.
Well, isn't Jerry out of town? Isn't he testing some sort of aircraft up north?
No, he's back. He came back this morning.
He finally tells his wife that things are about to happen and they're leaving tonight along with Jerry and his wife. Jerry shows up unexpectedly at this point and Bill takes him down to the basement to talk. Jerry starts to say that they've got to change their plans, but before Jerry can say anything, Bill tells him to wait a minute as he pretends to fix Jerry's watch and starts a drill to mask their voices. Jerry tells Bill that the guard he's paid is now getting off at 11. Bill tells him they'll just have to leave earlier than planned, that their credentials are good, and that they're just relatives with permission to look at the new ship. As they finish, the scene shifts to the basement window, where a very sinister-looking Carling has been lurking, obviously listening outside the window. The scene ends here. This episode was the Twilight Zone debut of director Richard L. Baer, who would go on to direct a total of 7 episodes, including fan favorites To Serve Man and Nick of Time. The unusual camera angles and trick shots used in this episode would make it stand out and really accent the paranoid and doomsday-like feel. The twist ending could have been telegraphed to the viewer if the direction was too in-your-face, but Baer walks a fine line here, showing just a little bit but not too much. The director of photography, Harry Wilde, in his only contribution to the zone, is brilliant here with his use of wide-angle lenses, distorting the view of this world. Fritz Weaver and Edward Andrews are outstanding in their roles and really turn in top-notch performances that sell the episode. You can feel the anxiety that Sturka, played by Weaver, is feeling and really empathize with him. And the subtle villainy by Andrews is remarkable, as you can tell he's just playing with them. The way Andrews delivers his lines is brilliant, as you can just feel the tension in the scenes that he is in.
This is a night for a front porch. Or sleep. But nothing else.
That evening, when Jerry and his wife Ann are over for cards, the tension is thick in the air as Jerry shows Sturka their final destination, which he says is 11 million miles away. Now, the Twilight Zone science is never really that accurate. It's pure science fiction fantasy. Just then, an unexpected visitor shows up at the door. Who else but Carling? The boys have been plotting out their escape route on a piece of paper, which they now use the reverse side to pretend to keep score of their card game. There's a great camera angle shooting up through the glass table with Carling standing menacingly over the two as he bends to pick up the paper to see their scores. He never flips the paper over, but he doesn't have to. You can tell that he already knows what they're up to. The music by composer Bernard Herrmann is stock music, but it's really effective here and contributes to the overall tension and feel of the episode.
You're a little nervous, Mrs. Sturka. You're very nervous.
The intense close-up shots of Sturka and Carling as they size each other up are also effective use of camera technique. As they're getting ready to leave, the phone rings. It's the factory. They're working tonight and are sending a car over to pick Bill up. Everybody scrambles to get their things as Bill's wife starts to clean up. She suddenly stops and says how silly it is that they're never coming back here again. After driving for a while, they finally reach the gate where the spaceship is kept, and we finally get a look at the ship. It's a model of the saucer-shaped spacecraft that was used in the movie Forbidden Planet. After several tense moments, they finally see a light flashing in the distance, and they think it's their contact. But as the light gets closer, they see that it's Carling, not a security guard, and he's holding a gun on them. He orders the men back into the car and the women to get out. But just then, daughter Jody slams the door open into Carling's hand and smacks the gun out. They knock him unconscious and make a run for the spaceship. As they're boarding the ship, you can see that it's the same one used later in To Serve Man, On Thursday We Leave for Home, and people are alike all over. Fighting off security guards, they go up the ramp and now head out into space. They then head for the nearest star with a planet that they know is inhabited, and here comes the twist ending. We all know what it is now, but at the time it was a shocker.
It's the third planet from the sun, Bill. It's called Earth.
The plot on Third from the Sun feels a little stretched out, but the dialogue and characters are fleshed out as much as they can be in a half-hour TV show. You really feel something for these characters as they race to survive what is surely a planetary holocaust of unimaginable proportions. They're ready to risk everything, including their lives, in order to steal the experimental top-secret spacecraft and fly off to a planet in deep space to get away from the total destruction that is coming. It's Matheson's way of warning us here on Earth that the same end-of-the-world scenario could also be playing out here if we're not careful. The Twilight Zone was not just a great fantasy anthology show, but also, in its deepest moments, an insightful social commentary on society's fears of the day. One thing you can't do while watching The Twilight Zone is turn your mind off. It makes you think about what you're watching in a way that's not only intellectual, but entertaining at the same time. Let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments below. And as always, this is Rich from Rerun Zone, signing off.